A little tech disadvantage, so to speak, but I'm learning along the way. But welcome to the Life Agent Accident Health Pre-Licensing Study Hall intro. We're calling it a study hall because that's really what it is. It's a study hall. And it gives you an opportunity to not only engage with me, but to engage with other learners. So my goal is to at least get 10 to 12 people in this class so that by the end of the session, I can give you some, like I have crossword puzzles, I have quizzes, and I always find that in the classroom when I give you group activities to do, that you're teaching each other and you're helping each other learn. And so by the second half of the session, I can put you into breakout rooms. You can engage with one or two other learners and get through these quizzes, and you can teach each other. Then we come back together, we go over the answers, and then see how well you did on those quizzes, because the quizzes are a really good measure of how you're retaining the material, if you're picking up the material, and if there's anything you need to ask questions about, or anything that I may need to put more attention to. But the biggest piece about those breakout rooms, when we get the chance to do it, when we get a bigger group of people, is that you're engaging with one another, and that it helps with the learning process. Because learning is, if you want to remember things and you want to learn things more effectively and have better retention of the material, then you've got to use all learning styles. The auditory piece of sharing and teaching each other is one of the most effective and probably one of the most biggest part that you get out of classroom training. And so we can emulate that in this setting when we put you in breakout rooms. But again, with two people, I could probably do that. But ideally, getting 2 or 3 people is ideal. All right, so let's go to the first session. So getting your California insurance license, like it's quick and easy, right? We make it quick and easy. Our theory is that the sooner you get through the system, the less effort it actually takes. Just like when, a rocket goes up into space, the biggest amount of energy that it takes is on the liftoff. Just like anything, it's getting started. Because if you notice, once you start something, isn't it easy to just keep doing it? It's starting that new habit, it's starting that new practice, it's in the initiation of getting something started that can present the biggest challenge. But once you get started, all you're doing is like you're working through whatever shows up, right? The friction always shows up. That's life, distractions, this, virus 19 thing, all of these things show up. But when you tune your attention and you know when the finish line is, you know where you're going, right? So the purpose of this structure in this program right now is that we're taking 2 parts of it together. We're doing both the insurance aspect of it, the pre-licensing requirement aspect of it online, and then we're augmenting all of that with the online study hall, where you, again, get the benefits of being in a classroom-like type of environment where you can ask questions in real time. So you don't get credit for being online with me through the Zoom calls, but you get your credit through doing the online through the Lightspeed with your username and password. Ideally, like I said, we want to get this quickly, right? And so the program is spread out for 2 weeks. And ideally, you want to schedule your exam for April 30th or May 1st, which is a Thursday or a Friday. PSI is still testing right now. They are testing in select locations and limited locations. Right now, as we know it, and you've got to, the whole thing, I think if there's anything that this time has taught us, is that we have to be flexible. You've got to adjust and continue. When something shows up, you got to adjust and you got to keep going, right? And so for all we know, they could like shut down the testing centers tomorrow. But as we know it today, the California Department of Insurance that regulates the insurance industry is very, very consumer protective, which means that they've already announced publicly that they're not going to give any exemptions for pre-licensing or any licensing requirements. That if you're going to get licensed in the state of California, you still have to meet the pre-licensing requirement, which is 52 hours. You still have to pass your state licensing exam. You still have to get fingerprinted, and you still have to file an application. So there's no, skipping steps. You have to meet all 4 requirements in order to get your insurance license in California. And because of that, the testing centers are still open right now. Any questions so far, Rebecca? Do you have any?
When does the fingerprinting occur? After you've passed the exam or pre-exam?
Well, ideally, you'll get fingerprinted right after you take your exam at the testing center. I had a
student.
I see. She just took her exam on Monday, and they didn't fingerprint her. They said that they're not fingerprinting. And so I had another student who had an issue with her fingerprints, and her license is being held up right now. And then she went, and she was pretty committed, and I had her in the classroom, so I know how she is, and she actually found a place that is fingerprinting right now. So we're basically giving that resource to our students. If they're still not fingerprinting when you show up, then we'll send you the phone number to schedule with someone in Pleasanton. This person's in Pleasanton to fingerprint you. Okay. Unless you have another resource, that'd be grand too. All right. So this is, what do you do to pass the first time? That's my goal. So like our mission is that 90% of our students pass the first time. My goal is that everybody passes the first time. When I'm in the classroom with you, I have a vested interest in you. Like I want you to pass the first time. And plus it reflects really good on my numbers. Not that it's about the numbers, but you know, my commitment is that everybody passes the first time. And so what do you need to do? These are classes where they actually didn't take their exam yet, but they all declared they were going to pass the first time, and they did. Because, you know, we have a plan. You follow the plan, you follow the schedule, then you're going to run through the finish line and pass the exam the first time. So the first thing you got to do is you got to schedule that exam. But, you know, given current circumstances, you know, a lot of people, you know, they're out of work, they don't have a stream of income. The last thing they want to do is pay the $88 right now to schedule their exam. And so there are still spots. We're checking all the time to make sure that there's still spots available. If we notice that there's like a kind of a limitation on the testing spots, then we'll make an announcement and say, hey, you know what, we noticed that the availability of testing is less, so you may want to start scheduling right now. In the ideal world, you would schedule your test today. That would be your homework. You're going to schedule for April 30th or May 1st. Study the playbook. You got to study the playbook. And let me go back to scheduling your exam. Even though you don't schedule your exam, still make that exam date your target date, even if you don't schedule. Because worst case scenario is that we actually have another class running next door. I'm going to close the door. So if you'll excuse me for a moment, because I can hear her. I don't know if you can hear her, but I can hear her. Wow, she's loud. I could still hear her really muted.
Where
Anyways,
are the exam sites in the Bay Area?
they're everywhere, but only a few of them are still open. So right now we have, or they have Santa Rosa, Sacramento, and San Francisco open. They had Santa Clara open, and then I had a student who just went there, maybe Tuesday, I think it was a couple days ago, and they were closed. So then they had to reschedule them. So again, it's one of those things you got to adjust and continue. They didn't really get any notice that their exam was not available or that the testing center was going to be closed. I think Santa Clara is probably more strict with this shelter in place. I'm going out on a limb saying that. You know, they're doing a lot down here. I actually have a couple of friends that are on the front line, and so they've seen some pretty interesting things, and they're saying that they're also seeing less occurrences coming through. So what are they saying? They're flattening the curve is really effective down here. I can't speak to other places. I know that I have a friend who lives in the city who showed me a photo, and it looks like any other day. Everybody's out and about at the Shake Shack or something like that. So yeah, so they're just testing in limited places right now, and then Santa Clara is no longer available. So those are the 3 spots in the kind of the San Francisco Bay Area. And like I was sharing with Brad before, you know, I personally like the Santa Rosa because I just like the drive. It helps me decompress. It helps you mentally prepare. That was one of the last places that they temporarily shut down for testing. So if they were going to shut a testing center down, I think Santa Rosa would be the last one, simply because it's so far away and kind of secluded that there's not a lot of people. And that's where they're finding the most issues, is where there's a lot of dense population. And so I would probably schedule there, or even Sacramento. But I wouldn't go to San Francisco because that could be a little unpredictable as to whether or not they would shut that down. And I'm just making predictions. I don't really know what PSI is going to do. So that's the exam. But like I said before, you know, if you're going to delay scheduling your exam, still set that mental finish line of taking it on April 30th or May 1st. The next thing is that, I know, Brad, you already have your playbook. Rebecca, your playbook will probably go out tomorrow because we're mailing we mail Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We don't mail every day. And so your playbook will go out, and the playbook is the study manual. There's 2 pieces to all of this that I usually talk about. There's the pre-licensing aspect of it, right? And this is what the state requires. But the pre-licensing alone is generally not enough. Pre-licensing alone, if you only do pre-licensing, that's not really enough. And I know you can't see it, but I am talking about it. The pre-licensing alone is not enough to pass the exam the first time. It really isn't. because it's all based on the curriculum. And if you're doing the training online and you're only focusing on the pre-licensing, then you're missing all of the things that you actually should know for the exam. So there's the pre-licensing aspect of it, and then there's the exam preparation aspect of it. Exam prep. So the exam prep piece you're getting through the study hall, because everything that I share and all of the pre-licensing topics that I talk about in the study hall is all around the context of preparing you for the exam. So I'll say something like I'll give you an example right now. So for example, risk. So when we talk about risk is the uncertainty of loss, the possibility of loss. That's how they define risk, right? Uncertainty of loss, possibility of loss, and a chance of loss. All related to loss. And, and I'll describe what all of this means. And then at the end, after I describe what it is, I'm going to tell you, like in the context of how this may show up on your exam, is they're going to ask you what's the definition of risk. All of the following pertain to risk except. They love to ask except questions on your exam. And so the exception is going to be the cause of a loss. Cause of loss. Because the cause of a loss is peril. And so, again, I'll take whatever you're studying, and then I'm just going to distill it down to the essence of what you need to know to help you pass the exam in the context of the exam, because that's really the goal. And then I'll add little stories and things like that, and people think, oh, you go off subject a lot, but when they take their test, they realize that I may have gone off subject, but for some reason they remember the answer because of whatever random story I had shared at that time. Again, because one of the things that we incorporate in our training is accelerated learning. So I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But again, you got the pre-licensing, which is the online portion of it that you're doing independently, and then you have the exam prep, which you're getting from Study Hall, and then the cram course. Follow the schedule. I'll go over the schedule in a little bit. So I'm going to ask both of you. So how will you get the most out of your time online? How will you learn more in our time? So those are two separate questions. So how will you get the most out of your time online, and how will you learn more in our time together? And so you study less on your own. So any thoughts?
I would say do the pre-licensing first.
Do the pre-licensing first? Okay.
Material.
Well, we're doing it together. But yes, you will have homework. So you definitely, I would advise to do the homework beforehand. But yeah, let's just put it that way. We'll keep that structure in place where do the homework before you show up to the study hall sessions. By doing the homework before the study hall, it will allow you the opportunity to ask questions. It'll give you the opportunity to, you heard it before, and then you're gonna hear me reinforce what you need to know. A lot of times you're going through the material and you don't have to know every single piece of that information, right? You just need to know the essence of what they're gonna test you on. So, Brad, how will you get the most out of your, how have you been doing online? You're just getting through the material, right?
Yeah, the online just been so much information, and then they ask 5 questions. So
Right.
it's what I've been kind of doing is taking the keynotes and remembering the key things and studying as best as I can retain, and then get to the 5 questions, and then for whatever ones I missed, I'd go back and understand it. So I mean, the best way for me to learn is, I guess, interactive, and it's more of having the universal understanding. I don't know. I'm more of a get involved with it sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you get a lot out of our study hall because again, you're getting through the online the pre-licensing through the online requirement or through the online training. And then in the study hall, we're just going to tune in on what you need to know. And then it'll give you an opportunity to ask questions and understand the concept so that if they do change the wording of the question, then you're going to be in a much better position to answer that question. And I think that going through it this will help you put some of the pieces together as well. Yes.
Yeah, it was just confusing with the online training because the material will be 25 to 30 pages of text, and then his video might be 2 minutes, his video might be 20 minutes. So it's kind of like, it was very unclear, what am I gathering, what are the key indicators here? So you don't know that until you get your questions. So it's kind of hard to know what to look for that's so critical in lessons.
I don't know I don't know what the questions are, but I do know that I've had students who can't sit in through our classroom from 8 to 5. So they'll do the online requirement, and then they'll come in like after they drop the kids off to school, and then they have to pick them up. They'll leave early, And every day that we cover the material, it's helped them move through the chapters faster. So you'll definitely get some assistance in like understanding like the answers to those questions when you cover this. So even though you have like 3 or 4 chapters left, you don't have to rush through it necessarily. I mean, those are the biggest chapters. We'll go through the outline in a moment, but Medicare supplement, there's 15 questions on the state licensing exam for that, and those are senior health plans. So those are the last chapters. There's a lot of information that you actually need to know there, but I will give you the skinny and what you need to know and the essence of that material, and in a way that you will remember for when you take the exam. So we'll get to that in a moment. But how will you learn more in our time together and study less on your own? So this is a really big piece of the classroom training, because one of the things that I always ask is that on the first day of class, we're always setting the container, we're setting the context. So we're setting context for our time together online. And that is, if you want to get the most out of anything you do in life, what do you have to do? It starts with a P.
I can think of a million words, but
Ends with an E. It's one word.
I would say
Persevere.
Perseverance, persistence, practice.
Oh, there we go, right there. Participate. Yay!
Participate.
All right, we failed.
We don't say the F word, Brad.
we were close.
We were.
You got to. It starts with a P. I knew that.
So how do you participate? Well, I'm going to ask questions. Really give yourself the space and the time that when we're online together, that you can participate, that you're okay with like answering a question out loud, even though you're sitting in a room by yourself and you're online, right? So if I ask a question, like I'll say something like, we'll do Medicare real quick. So, who is eligible for Medicare? So I'll say something like 65, 65, 24 kidney. And then I'll say, please repeat after me. And then together we would all say 65, 65, 24. So let's practice that now. So we'll say together. Are you ready? So who is eligible for Medicare? 65, 65, 24 kidney. And so the reason, now I'll explain what that means later. That phrase alone and that little chant alone is literally worth 2 to 3 questions on your exam, because they will ask the eligibility for those who are eligible for Medicare. They have different versions of that same question. So when you know 65, 65, 24 kidney, then it will help you answer, and you already get 2 to 3 points on your exam. And now you only need 87 to pass, right? Because you need 90 points to pass the exam, meaning you have to get 90 questions answered correctly out of 150 questions to pass the exam the first time. But participation also includes like your learning styles. So there's 3 basic learning styles. And this is true for all learning, right? It doesn't matter what you're learning. First of all, repetition is the mother of all learning. And there's 3 basic learning styles. There's a 4th one. I don't really get into that. That's more of an advanced training class that I would teach if I was teaching facilitators. And learning styles are visual. And what do you think is A?
Auditory.
Auditory. And then what's the last one? What's K? So I'm gonna give you a demonstration of K right now. So so everybody go like this. Go ahead, I can see you. I can see you. I don't think, yeah, you can see each other too, right? So everybody go like this. Go put your hands over your head. Don't touch your face though, because it's the COVID-19 thing. So go ahead, put your hands in front of your face like this. There we go. Thank you, Brad. Nope, like this, like
It's because we can't see you, or I can't see you, Irma.
Putting big goggles.
Like this.
Big goggles.
There we are.
There you go. So that's visual, right? And then put your hands over your ears. That's auditory. And then kinesthetic, you'll put your hands on your lap, right, twice, and then your heart. So kinesthetic, right? So what is this one again? It's visual. What's this?
Audible.
Auditory. And then this one, kinesthetic, right? So that action of those movements, there's a chapter where I have like movements for all of these different things you need to know. And I won't do it in front of the screen like this. I'll actually stand up in front of the camera here, and I would demonstrate that because I'd be using the whiteboard rather than the PowerPoint. And the kinesthetic is engaging the body and adding movement to the learning. And so when your body's engaged, your mind is engaged. And so even though you're like, I don't understand, it's like we're doing a dance or whatever, I don't get it. The fact that you're even moving helps stimulate brain activity. And that's what we want in the learning, right? So kinesthetic, you don't get that unless you're in a classroom and you have a trainer that actually engages you by using your body. So one of the things that we usually do, we will take like a couple of stretch breaks while we're in the training. It's 2 hours long. Sitting 2 hours in front of a computer screen can be a bit daunting. So at some point I'll have you, and I'm also a certified yoga teacher, so I'll have you stand up and we'll do a couple of stretches and then we'll go back into the learning. The other thing with kinesthetic is also storytelling. So I may share a story that may seem completely irrelevant, but because I've evoked some sort of emotion or some sort of shift in what we call state, it again engages and helps in the learning process, which you don't normally get when you self-study. So visual, you get when you self-study. Auditory, unless you know you're an auditory learner and you read out loud and you say things out loud, you don't get that either when you study on your own. But when you're in a classroom setting, and because I have training in accelerated learning styles or in accelerated learning, that will allow us to bring all of these elements. So the time that you're investing online, you're going to get more out of than if you're going to go and study on your own. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, good.
Yes.
Yes, you can shake your head. That would be a kinesthetic response. Awesome. So here is the schedule. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to email it to you, Rebecca. If you got that, did you get that long confirmation email with all that information in it?
Yeah, this is what I got. I didn't get the Zoom invite. I got this, and I didn't see any start or end time, so I'm unclear as to how long.
Oh, goodness. Oh, I forgot to put that in there. I will redo this. I'll send you an updated one. Today's pardon me?
The one that Hunter sent me had the times and the Zoom login, but it didn't have the homework.
Yeah, so this one actually has the homework. The other one, exactly. I forgot to put the start time and date. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Brad. So I'll take the times from the, I'll send you the skinny schedule, which only has the study hall sessions. This one has the homework in gray. So today we're scheduled from 1:30, it's 90 minutes long, from 1:30 to 3. What's the, let's see the time. Oh, so we have time. And then the other sessions are 2-hour long sessions. So tomorrow we have a 1 o'clock session that goes, I think it's 1 o'clock, 1 to 3 for tomorrow. And then we're doubling up a session in the morning and then a session in the afternoon on Monday, doubling up Wednesday, Friday. You have homework, you got a lot of homework over the weekend, and then come back Monday, and then Wednesday for the exam prep. So Brad, like you said, you have the last 3 chapters, so that would be Monday session. So Monday session on the 27th, a week from Monday, we'll have the chapters that you still have to complete there.
Right.
The sections do not correspond with the chapters. The sections are just how the material that we're delivering. Because I'm not covering every chapter in the live study hall. I may pull things from other chapters to reinforce because I know it's likely to be on your exam. But I'm not going to cover every single chapter because that would just mean we'd have to, spend more time together, which I'm not against, but I also want to be respectful of people's time and, trying to make a living and get some work done and things of that nature. The other thing that you might benefit from this too, that has the biggest effect on the exam, Brad, if you're busy, if your schedule is pretty filled, do your best to get to section 4. Because the policy provisions, options, and policy writers, that's probably makes up about 25 to 30 questions on your exam in that chapter alone. So that's a pretty heavy chapter there. The insurance basics, which will start tomorrow, that's a 2-hour segment, and we'll cover, again, insurance basics along with some of the code and ethics, which you need to know. And we went over that. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was saying, from a scheduling standpoint, you keep saying tomorrow's 2 hours, but Hunter put it down from 1:30 to 3 for tomorrow.
Oh, it's 90 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, I can change, just have it on my calendar allotted for 90, but if you want, you saying it would be 1 o'clock to 3? Yeah,
if you stay, if you only do 90 minutes, that's okay too. We've covered this material together already.
Yeah, it's more the start time. Just saying if it starts at 1.
Oh yeah, let me see. Well, you have the master schedule, so it says 1:30 to 3 for tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, then I'll have to honor that. So I'll go back to that schedule. The other sessions must be 2 hours each then.
Are you going to be sending a Zoom evite for each and every meeting?
No, what happened is that I have to approve you to get into the meeting. So you were in the waiting room and I didn't see that. And then once you got into the waiting room, I was able to approve you. Is that what happened, or you just weren't able to get in, period?
Well, I'm completely unfamiliar with Zoom and kept looking for an invite.
Oh, okay.
my
Do
email, which I never got. And
you
then
have do you have a Zoom account?
no. So is that what I need to
Yeah,
do?
set up a Zoom account. Yeah, because then when you log into Zoom, you just put our meeting ID number in and our password, and it'll let you right in.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So here you go, right? Session one. Again, it adds structure to what we're doing. If you notice, the weekend homework is the information that we're going to cover. So the goal is to get through the online learning chapters 3, 4, and 5, and then start reading the quick notes, which I'm going to talk about the playbook a little bit later in the session here, about how to study the playbook, why you study the playbook that way. We have a YouTube video on the test strategies, which will get emailed to you next Monday, because that would be part of your homework if you're doing the life only. So both of you are doing life with accident and health. So I wouldn't advise looking at the YouTube video up until Wednesday the 29th. That would be your homework for Monday night, or Monday. Between Monday and Wednesday, your homework would be the YouTube video. The YouTube video is put there because we have students who do life only. We have students who do accident and health only. So if somebody joins us and they're doing the life only, then they would want to watch the YouTube video before we go into the exam prep on Wednesday. But that doesn't apply to either one of you. You would move that YouTube down to your homework right before the last Wednesday session. And then again, here's the schedule of when you want the ideal test date, whether you take the life agent, accident health only agent. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I just had a student that this happened to, where she went in and she took the accident and health only exam. She scheduled for the wrong exam. And this is not unheard of, no matter how many times I tell you, check your confirmation, make sure you're taking the right test. You are taking, if you look at the very bottom of this slide, life, accident and health agent, life agent exam. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you want to, you can take a photo of your confirmation, send me a text, and I will be your second set of eyes to make sure you're taking the right exam. So she took the accident health only exam last week and passed. She was so excited. She got an 85%. I said, send me your results because I want to know how you test in all the different areas. She sends me her results, and I said, you do employee benefits. You need both life and health. You need to take the other part of your exam. And I reinforced, do not file your licensing application, because what happens is that if you file for one part of the license and then you go back and do the second part, guess what? You have to pay again. So her penalty basically for not taking the exam with life with accident and health is that she had to pay a second exam fee. So you can avoid paying 2 exam fees by simply paying one exam fee for both life and accident and health at the same time. So that's the cost of like not paying attention. So make sure you're doing the life, accident, and health and life agent exam. And like I said, I can be your second set of eyes if you want. Now, this is the makeup of the exam. This is the breakdown of the exam. So if you notice, I mean, the way I like to break this down is I usually say that they're testing you in 3 areas. If we can make it more of a broader type of perspective, they're testing 3, sorry, let me go back. General insurance, 40 questions. And I know it's kind of light, but, and then if we go all the way down to health and disability concepts, this section here is 57 questions, and that's on accident and health. Now, given, you know, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, a lot of students find it much easier to get through the health insurance piece than the life insurance piece. And so, again, 57 questions. So the exam is leaning a little bit more towards the accident and health. And that's really more of my area at this point of my career anyways, because I did start with life as a life agent along with, and I had my securities, my Series 6 and 63 license back in the 90s. And then, you know, changes in my career and what I chose to do, which has led me now. I've had an independent health insurance agency now since 2013. And so, you know, I'm pretty well versed in the individual family plans. I only have like 2 small groups that I work with. And so that's more of my area. So when we cover this section, you know, I can clarify things really quick for all of you, and we can get through that material pretty quickly with some stories because I have a current experience in that area. The life insurance and policy writers, there's only 53 questions on your exam. That area, you know, again, I have experience in that area too, but that's a little bit further back. And I do have some stories, but my stories are much older. And you put all of these pieces together, you only need 90 questions right. So you don't have to know everything. And that I need to emphasize that. As adult learners, oftentimes we think we should know everything. You should be prepared. And you know, preparation, unfortunately, for this exam is only 60%. You only need to get 60% to pass this exam the first time. Your exam will be made up of 150, 155, or 160 questions. But regardless of the number of questions you get, you will always be scored on 150. And how many right do you need to pass? You only need 90. That's it, just 90. Now, how much time do they give you?
3 hours and 15 minutes.
3 hours and 15 minutes. Oh my goodness, that is so much time, so much time. Our students usually take an hour to an hour and a half. A lot of students, they take their exam right away, they'll finish in less than an hour. Why? Because you're prepared. If you do what we tell you to do and you do your part, we do our part, you're gonna pass the exam the first time. But you've gotta do your part. I cannot emphasize that enough, okay? Any questions on this? No? Okay, cool. All right, this is more of the specifics. You don't need to know this. I need to know this. This is just to illustrate that according to the Department of Insurance, this is pretty much what they make up the exam. They're going to test you. This is, remember I said the Medicare and Medicare supplements right here under senior healthcare plans. They're telling you they're going to test 15 questions. Oops. There's 15 questions on, there are 15 questions on senior healthcare plans right there, right? The Affordable Care Act, there's 8 questions on the Affordable Care Act. I do a whole segment on that. Individual insurance, specific to medical expense. I already start talking about that in our first session when we do talk about general insurance. Check this out. They asked 10 questions on contract law. And so that's something that we're going to definitely focus some attention to with the 16 questions on basic insurance and principles. So tomorrow we're going to cover like 26 points on your exam. That's almost a quarter of your exam already. That if you know that, you're already a quarter of the way there. All right. But again, you don't need to know this. This is our job. Check it out. You get 3 questions on taxation. We talk about taxation and so on. So I'm going to give you a moment. You know, this is more of a writing exercise. I think that this is a lot of times we don't take the time to really get clarity on why we do what we do. And so so go ahead and pull out a pen and a paper. And if you were in the classroom with me, we would be doing this together. So I would have everybody pull out a pen and paper. So go ahead and do that now. And so, I already asked, how do you get the most out of this class? And we said, what did we say? It starts with a P. What was it?
Participate.
Thank you. You participate. You sound so enthusiastic, Brad. So you participate, right? So along with participation is, though, getting clarity on why you're doing this. Like, why are you taking this class? Why? You could be doing anything else, and yet you're investing your time, energy, and resources to put your attention and invest in yourself to do this right now. So what I'd like you to do is, you're not going to share this with anyone. This is for you. I mean, if you do share, I do recommend you share with, like, a VIP, very important person in your life, so that they can support you in this venture that you're seeking out, right? And so get some clarity as to, why are you doing this? Why are you taking this class? What do you want to get out of it? What's the purpose of this time that you're investing now? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to go ahead and do that. And go ahead and when I tell you to begin, like, free write or write for 2 minutes. Even if you run out of things or reasons, continue to write, and then just see whatever the subconscious might bring up in your writing. So go ahead and please take 2 minutes now to write why you're taking this class and what do you want to get out of this time together. Go ahead and begin. go to wrap it up. Whatever, going to complete whatever thought you're writing down. There you go. And that's awesome. So that's for you. You know, I would look at it every few days while you're doing this training and while you're working on the pre-licensing, and just see if anything else comes to you as to why you're taking this, right? Because you might get more clarity, or you might realize, wow, there's so much more that you can get out of it than what you thought. And there's a saying, the bigger the why, the easier the how, right? And so if you know why you're doing this and why you're committed to what you're doing as far as starting a new career, or you know, whether it's an encore career or it's a career change, whatever that is for you, just adding more meaning to it, right? Making things meaningful just adds so much more power and inspiration and enthusiasm behind that, whatever you're trying to move towards or move in your life, all right? So now, I didn't take this slide out on purpose. You know, I do, and the reason I kept it in here is because I want to talk about how repetition is the mother of all learning. During this time in the classroom, one of the things that we know that makes a huge effect on learning is community. When you're in a classroom setting, there's a phenomenon that takes place that's called entrainment. And a lot of times what happens is that the lowest common denominator, if there's entrainment in the group and if there's a sense of community in the classroom, it actually raises the level of learning and comprehension among the classroom. And that's like, I don't know how you can duplicate that in an online setting, but we're gonna do our best to do that. So the cool thing about the two of you is that you're both from the same company, you're gonna work in the same agency, and so there's already this familiarity and this connection between the two of you. And two of the other students who are supposed to be on this call, one of them is an employee benefits person, which is a great connection to have. And the other person is also with New York Life. So you'll get, again, this common thread between all of you and then whoever else joins us in the group. I don't remember the other companies. But with that being said, normally around the room, everybody would go around and they would say their name, and they would share something about themselves, the company they're going to work with, if they have any insurance experience, which is important for me to know, and because that lets me know where the class is at and what level. But the biggest piece is not just the community that it creates, but the demonstration of a principle of learning, and that is repetition is the mother of all learning. I have done this practice of learning everybody's name. The largest group I've done this with is 42 people. And believe it or not, it took us a while. It's worth the investment in the time. And people were surprised with the fact that they learned everybody's name within the first 2 hours of being in the classroom together. And the way we do it is this. So I would say, you know, my name is Irma. You know, what I like to do for fun is I want to be outside right now. That's my fun, is being outside. I do not like being cooped up. It actually, being told that I can't go out makes it even worse for me because now I want to go out. It's like I can be in the office working all day and not even give it a second thought that I didn't step outside. But now that I'm told that I'm not supposed to go outside or that I should wear a mask, just makes me want to be outside even more.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So then I would say, okay, what's her name? And then everybody would say Irma. And so Rebecca, just tell us one little thing about you.
My name is Rebecca, and I'll be working with New York Life in the same office with Brad under Choi.
Yay.
I have no insurance experience except as a consumer.
Okay, great.
And what do I like to do for fun? It's kind of mundane. It's what a lot of people like to do, which is garden.
Oh, nice. Do you have a garden now that you started?
I have a big yard, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. So so then I would say, what's her name? And then Brad and I would say Rebecca. And then what's my name? Everybody would say, what's my name? Irma or Irma, whatever you want to call me. I respond to both. So again, that's the repetition, right? So Brad, go ahead and tell us your New York Life and what do you like to do for fun? Just one little thing you like to do for fun.
So one thing I love to do for fun and for health and for mental and for physical is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And we can't do that because that's very close contact right now. So can't train.
So what do you do? Do anything to substitute?
Well, actually, yes. Last night we had an online training how to create a body dummy that you can practice your moves on. And you basically take your gi and you stuff it with pillows and towels and and so that you can have a somewhat of a body to train on. But I just get out and run every day and think about, just study the moves in my mind and try to do some drills. But something that it was 5 days a week. I was an instructor. I was a student and all that stuff. So to go from full that to not having your therapy is kind of tough.
That's got to be tough, right? Then I'd say, okay, what's his name? And then everybody would say Brad. And then I'd say, okay, what's her name? And then everybody would say Rebecca. And then what's my name? Irma. And the reason we would do that is to demonstrate repetition. Because repetition is the mother of all learning. And it also, a learning principle they call it chunking. I don't like that word because it makes me think of something else. But another word that I like to call it is called stacking. I like to call it stacking. And the way stacking works is like this. I'm going to talk about the playbook in a moment. And the playbook is just questions and answers, questions and answers. And the answers are in bold and they're highlighted in bold, right? And so I usually advise that you chunk or that you stack, meaning that you're going to read like whatever amount of time you have. You'll read like 20 questions and reread those 20 questions. And then move on to the next set of 20 and reread those 20. And the benefit of chunking it or stacking it that way in like pieces is that you're getting the repetition. Because to think that you're going to read something and then remember that thing it doesn't make any sense, because learning happens unconsciously and learning happens through repetition. And so our playbook is repetitious. Like we deliberately repeat questions and answers. People will say something about it, and it's like, that's on purpose. And yeah, it's a little bit more redundant than we want it to be. We're actually remedying that, and we're in the process of doing that now since we have time. And still, you still want to use the stacking method by reading, like I said. Find out what your bite size or what your chunk is. Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 30? Maybe it's 50. The objective, though, is that you do not take a break unless you've read those questions twice. So that's why we're telling you to only read like maybe 25 to 30 questions and then reread those, because by the time you've read them twice, maybe it is time for a break. Students who have English as a second language, we advise to take smaller chunks, maybe read 10 questions and then reread those 10 questions. But again, it's the demonstration of repetition. And the other reason why we learn everybody's name is because of the community that it creates inside of the classroom and inside of the learning. There we go, repetition is the mother of all learning. So, classroom conduct and guidelines. I'm still getting used to the tech behind all this. So I do get early, and then I try to figure out the camera and all this other stuff. And I figure by next week I'm gonna have it all down and we're gonna start right on time. But give yourself the gift of uninterrupted time. Like, tune your attention. One of our biggest commodity today, and one of the things that we're all competing for, whether you are, looking for clients or seeking clients or prospecting, whatever we're doing, if you're at home, everything is bidding for our attention. So today's commodity is attention. Everything seeks our attention. Right down to like getting these notices. I got I live in Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County notice of shelter in place. Like, they keep sending them every few days to us. And so again, everything is bidding for our attention. So give yourself the gift of uninterrupted time and really tune your attention. I think that's one of the things that set people apart from people who are high performers and get things done versus people who are just moving through the world and doing things, kind of the average way, is that there's this attention. And I think that Brad can speak to this, because I've had the pleasure of going over this material face to face right as we went into shelter in place, is that especially people who are athletic and who are doing those types of practices that you do every day, there's this level of discipline and focus that really sets people apart from everyone else. And that's really what you want to practice, because in this career and in this business, you can't sit in front of a client being distracted because your phone might ring, right? I mean, people want all of your attention. And everything that we do is an everyday practice. And this is part of that. I always talk about, when you're in the pre-licensing classes, this is the time to start new practices. This is the time to start new habits. And so if you're easily distracted and there's no benefit of that distraction, then guess what? You need to start learning to tune your attention to what you're doing, because your client will have a very difficult time trusting you if you're not able to tune your attention to them. So this is the time to do that. We're only asking, you're not even spending the whole day or sharing the whole day with me. You're just like, we're doing it in 90-minute, 2-hour increments. So starting to tune your attention, giving yourself the gift of uninterrupted time. I usually tell students to put their phones away while they're in the classroom. And the reason for that, because even if your phone is on the desk, it's still unconsciously you're making that decision as to whether or not you need to check it. And so I understand people have kids and you have things that do need your attention, that may call your attention. Do your best to minimize that and give yourself the practice of uninterrupted time. And then the other part, we don't have a dress code in our Concord location. San Francisco does. When we teach in San Francisco, there's a dress code there. I think that's probably why they do so well, because, you know, dress for success, it's a mindset thing. In Concord, we tell you, you know, you wear whatever you want to wear. But I think that, you know, the act of like putting on a nice shirt or something will just raise, it shifts the state. It puts you out of whatever you were doing and then puts you into learning mode. So it's a really good practice to kind of do this costume change, or maybe just, you know, dress in a way that you're not in your PJs. Because I did get on a call with somebody, they were in their PJs, and they're like, oh no, I've just been in my PJs for the last 2 days. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, but I need you in a learning state, so go put a sweatshirt on. So again, because there's something about that physicality of even doing something like that, right? That will shift your mindset into, okay, I'm not in TV mode, because being in front of a screen puts you in TV mode. There's got to be something that you practice that will shift you into this learning state. All right. So whatever that might be for you, you know, one of the things that I do is I get easily distracted, and I get things done, but my distraction is because I have this curiosity and I want to know everything. And so I don't have this here, but you know, when I'm at home, I'll have like these little crystals that I put aside, that like this crystal represents learning for me. So when I have it next to my computer, I know, okay, I need to be in a learning state. So whatever that is for you is just an example. Do that for yourself, okay? Schedule your exam. We already went over that. I'm not going to do this now. I'm going to do this in another video that I'll send you. What I'll do is I'll do a screen share and I'll just walk you through the entire process, because we've been wanting to do that anyways. I was going to take the time to do it now, but I will send you a video where I'll go to the PSI website. I'll show you how to schedule your exam, what you need to do, in making sure that you schedule the right exam, and the hiccups that people might come across in the process of doing that. The one thing that students do is that they pay for their they pay for their exam fee, and then they show up to the testing center. That's not how you do it. You're going to pay your exam fee. You still have to schedule for your exam. So don't think because you pay your exam fee that, oh, I can show up for a test. No, you got to pay the exam fee, and then you have to schedule your exam after that. All right. Oh, and then that's the end of our time for that. Do you have any questions for me pertaining to any of this? We finished early. Oh, yay, early's good. Brad, do you have any questions? Nada?
No, I guess just looking at the playbook, and I don't know if we were going to go into that today, if there's any homework, or
Yes.
what I got in the homework was to schedule for the exam, and I think you said something on the playbook.
Yes, so I am going to cover the playbook. I want to do that now, actually. So if you look at your playbook, Rebecca, you don't have a playbook yet, but the playbook, basically it's broken up into, let's see if I can, what I can do here. Let me go back.
Yeah, I guess my question is, when we're supposed to read through it, I wanted to see, like, read through what's in the bold and associate it to the answer. Do we read all 4 answers? What's the method to reading it?
I'm going to talk about that right now. So the playbook, the strategy to the playbook, how do you read the playbook? So the playbook is broken up into what? Life only, accident and health only, general insurance, and the life agent. So it's broken up into 4 sections. So I'm gonna get out of screen share here. Just give me a second to figure that out. Let's see. Nope. Here. I don't want to do that either. Screen share has paused. Oh, stop share. Jeez, it's right there in front of me. Okay, there we go. All right, cool. So, So the playbook, right? So the playbook, can you guys see, you can see the screen, yes?
Yes.
For some reason I have you, oh, okay, there we go. All right. So there's 3 sections in the, maybe I can take it out of this. Okay, I'll do it that way. So can you see, you can see what I'm writing on the board here? Yes? Did I mute my, no, okay, there we go.
You're good.
So life only, accident and health only. And what was the last one? You have general insurance. And then you have the life agent. And the life agent will have exam 1, 2, and 3. So there's 3 exams on the life agent, general insurance, life only, and accident health only. Each one of these sections have a section called quick notes.
On the life only, there's 4 exams.
Pardon me?
On life only, there's 4 exams in that section.
Okay, and so then there's 4 exams, and then how many in the accident and health?
Accident health. 4. There's 4 practice exams.
4, okay. And then the general insurance, I think there's 3 maybe?
General 3, no 2.
2?
There's general insurance, code ethics.
Yeah.
Looks like 2.
There's 2. Yeah, so those are the 3, 1, 2, 3. Those are the 4 sections that the playbook is on, right? So, dang it.
As for life agent has the 2. I'm sorry, life agent has 3.
Yeah. So, oh, life agent has 3? I knew one of them had 3.
Yeah.
So let me change that to 3. All right.
So accident has 4, life agent has 3.
Okay, perfect. So the quick notes, right? Those are just like what those, I'm just going to tell you what they are. They're the question with the right answer attached to them. So when you read the quick notes, it's basically you're just reading a book. You're reading content, you're reading information. And it may not make any sense to you because it's just a bunch of questions and answers, questions with the right answers. But that's what we want you to study, right? So you read the quick notes first, and then you read the exams. And when you read the exams, for example, I'm going to do a quick one here. All of the following.
They're not in the order. The quick notes are not in the order pertaining to what's on the exam, the practice exams, are they?
They're not, the playbook is not in order to the textbook or the material that you're studying online. They're not this, because they're not the same. Playbook is our material.
In the playbook where it says quick notes, key points, and it's numerically 1 through whatever. I'm just saying, then when I go to the life only exam in the playbook, those quick note answers do not pertain to the order of the, okay.
No, they don't. They do not match. They're 2 different. They're just, we have numbers next to them because it delineates like this is 1 point. And then when students have questions, it's easier for us to find what they're asking questions about. They'll say, you know, quick notes, page this, number this, then we can explain that quickly. But I'll give you an example. All of the following, right, are, oh, this is not a good question actually. Never mind. Well, I'm going to give you the question anyways. All the following are risk classifications. And then it's going to have the word accept. I might as well talk about accept questions now. So accept questions, this is the one thing that will throw people off every single time is those accept questions. And I'll talk about a strategy of how to deal with them. But, you know, the following are like, what is it, substandard, declined, preferred, and then standard. Now, with the accept questions, that's a tougher one because all of the I'm a recovering analytical. So as a recovering analytical, I want to know everything. And so for me, I'm going to read all the answers for the accept because I want to know what it is, and then I want to know what it's not. So usually the strategy I teach for the accept is true false. So all the following are risk classifications except. You're going to look at them as true false statements, and you're going to look for the one that doesn't fit, because accept questions are the negation. They're the one that doesn't belong. So I always call accept questions Sesame Street questions, because you're looking for the one that doesn't fit, right? So is substandard a risk classification? Yes. Is declined? Let's say you don't know. Preferred is definitely a risk classification. Standard is a risk classification. What is not a risk classification is what? The decline. But notice how you, even if you weren't sure that it was declined, by knowing these three, you know that it's going to be declined. Does that make sense? Because you go true, I don't know, true, true. Okay, then this is going to be the exception. This was not a good example to give you for what I was going to talk about. There's other questions like, which of the following defines a risk? So you're going to look for the cause of, you're going to look for the chance of a loss or the possibility of a loss, right? Which is what I wrote over there in the other slide. Now, you're only going to read the question with the right answer. That's the strategy. And you want to read the question for its essence. Like, what is the question asking? Because usually when you read the question, you can deduce the question to 2 or 3 words. You can deduce the question to 2 or 3 words as far as, 2 or 3 words as far as, we just have somebody else joining us. You can deduce it down to 2 or 3 words to the essence of what the question is asking. And then you want to find the relationship from that question to the answer, to the right answer, and only the right answer. You want to practice reading questions with answers so that it becomes a habit that when you're taking the test, as soon as you read the question, you're jumping to the answer or you're looking for the right answer. See, a lot of times what most test takers do, I believe that test strategies are life strategies. And what most people do is they read the question and then they look at all of their options and then they're trying to pick the best one. That's not how you do it. You read the question and then you're automatically thinking of what's the right answer ahead of time and that you're finding the right answer. Does that make sense? It's a completely different approach. Because see, once you read the question and you find the answer, are you going to read any of the other answers? No. You're just going to stick with the first answer and you move on to the next one. Because what happens is if you start reading all of the answers and they're all going to start to sound really good and they all sound familiar. Does that make sense? So you want to tune your attention and just focus on just the right answer, and that's it. So again, the practice of reading the playbook is to read the question with just the right answer, but reading the question to distill it down to 2 or 3 keywords and be engaged in the learning, meaning that to use, so some of the tools that you want to use while you're studying the playbook or while you're, even attending these Zoom sessions is that you want to have like a highlighter, have some colored pens, have some markers, and take notes with color, because especially if you're a visual learner, because color stimulates the visual cortex and it's going to help you with memory retention. It's going to help you remember. See, taking the exam is all about remembering, and remembering is easy, isn't it? When you use these type of learning tools to help you so that when you sit for the exam, all of a sudden you have the answer, but you don't even know why you have the answer. One of the things that I love about being in the classroom is that you can't be in training and not pick something up. You just can't. Because learning happens unconsciously. And so then when somebody takes a quiz and they're like, oh my God, I just guessed. I don't know how I got the right answer, but I guessed. Because you're in the classroom and learning happens unconsciously. Because the subconscious mind is always processing information. Because we don't like ambiguity. We want certainty. I think that's one of the other benefits of classroom training is that the certainty of like, this is the way it is. And then you have the ability to process it and to ask questions. If you have any of ambiguity or uncertainty in what you're learning, you can resolve it right there and then. But when it's left up to you, you're still going to be thinking about this information. That's why in test taking, I always advise, and I don't use the word always very, I do my best not to use that. But this is one thing that I do say. Always answer all the questions. Do not skip questions. Do not mark a question. You answer all the questions. Because what happens is as you're moving towards your exam and you're completing the 150 or 155 question exam, and if you skip something, you skip a question to answer it later, you're still unconsciously thinking about that other question. Think of a question that you have left unanswered. You're subconsciously still thinking about it. And then what happens is that when you move 5 questions, you have another one you're not sure about, you have another one that you skipped. Eventually you get to the end of the exam. What happened is you lose all your resources because you're unconsciously thinking about those other things. So the strategy is read all of the questions and answers, tune your attention to the questions and answers. I'm going to ask you this, Rebecca. How does the Secret, and you heard this story before, I think, Brad. How does the Secret Service train their agents to identify counterfeit money? You know, Rebecca?
I have no idea.
Okay, Shukri, is that your name? Hi, Shukri. So do you want to unmute? Do you know the answer to this question by chance? How do the Secret Service train their, no, you don't? Okay, so let's see. The way they train their agents to identify counterfeit money is that they only focus on the right money. They tune all of their attention to the right money, and they know all the details of the right money. They know like the texture of the paper, the color, the contrast of the color. They know like the eagle has 13 arrows and there's 13 stars, and like the pyramid and the eye. They know like all the details of what kind of money? The right money, because they focus all of their attention on the right money. That when the wrong money shows up, they know it's counterfeit. Do they know why it's counterfeit? Yes or no? 50-50 chance.
Experience.
No, they don't know why it's counterfeit, but you're right. It's their experience of tuning their attention to only the right money, that when the wrong money shows up, they just automatically know it's the wrong money. The practice is to read the playbook by tuning your attention to reading the question with only the right answer. And when doing that, you're developing the skill and the practice of looking for the question, of reading the question and then just looking for the right answer, rather than reading all of them. Does that make sense? And all of those things that are unfamiliar, this is another test strategy. All of those things that are unfamiliar to you are normally the wrong answers. They're going to be wrong. Why? Because you've spent so much time tuning your attention on what you do need to know and the right answer, that when the wrong answer shows up, it doesn't matter why, it's just the wrong answer. Got it? One more thing. Now, this is a mindset thing. So you've got to keep an open mind with this strategy, with the strategy that we teach around studying the playbook. Because in traditional learning, if I take a test, if you're given an exam in school and someone gives you the answers, what do people call that?
Cheating.
They call it cheating. But guess what? In the real world, they call that being resourceful. Because you're learning the right answer the first time. And guess what? People make a lot of money being resourceful. See, the skill in today's learning isn't learning necessarily like all this information. It's learning how to effectively remember things, right? Which is a practice of learning, but also being resourceful, being able to seek out information and distill information down. Well, how do I distill information? I practice reading questions and answers to know what's most important and what I need to take away from that information. Because we're in this we're in this age of technology where if you have a question, people just Google it. But see, Google doesn't always have the right answer. So you have to learn to ask the right questions to distill down what is the essence of the question and what is the essence of the right answer. Does that make sense? So that's what we're teaching here, is we're teaching the skill set of like all of these test strategies, everything that we cover. You know, one of the things that I didn't talk about in this section that I have in a live Facebook that I did talk about is that, you know, we believe that there's 3 things you need to pass any exam the first time. And this is true for anything that you do, but specific to exam and test taking. That is mindset, content, and test taking strategies. Out of those 3 things, which is the most important out of those 3? Yes. Mindset. Mindset supersedes everything. I can't tell you how many students I've had in the classroom that have English as a second language. I don't understand them. I don't think they understand me, but they do what we tell them to do. They do their part. They study that playbook. They're engaged in the classroom the best that they can, and they're still able to pass the exam. And you compare that to someone whose English is their first language. They're not willing to do the work. They want to do it their way, and then they don't pass the first time. So the willingness is you've got to keep an open mind to this new strategy in learning. Because see, science has already proven that you don't stop learning. You don't. There's neuroplasticity, right, in the brain, meaning the brain is malleable. You can learn something new at any time, but it goes back to your belief system. If you believe that you've stopped learning at a certain age, guess what? You're right. You will always be right. Your beliefs will always supersede my beliefs. So when I work with students that have a mindset barrier to the learning and the studying and the way that we teach it, I say, you know what? You do it your way. And then if you don't pass, then you come back and I will help you. And I promise you, you do it my way, you're going to pass the test. But you have to have a willingness to do your part. And your part is that playbook. That playbook is the exam prep. I like to compartmentalize things. And the pre-licensing is one aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it is the exam preparation. When you separate them like that, it makes it so much easier because you check the mark for pre-licensing and I'm done with that. And then you check the mark for the exam preparation. And we're telling you exactly what you need to do. You read that playbook, you use our strategy, you show up to this live Zoom call so that you get the essence of the content. Because see, the first thing is mindset. That's the most important. And believe it or not, with the stories that I share with you, regardless of the story, even if I'm sharing about like an ex-boyfriend or something like that, because people will, if you talk to people taking classes with me, they're like, oh, did you hear the story of the ex-boyfriend? Let me tell you, that is just a way of working on your mindset. Because when other people overcome adversity or share stories like that, you believe that you can overcome that adversity too. There's this thing that we have mirror neurons where we're mirroring each other and we have compassion and feelings for each other, right? And so when you hear those stories and these things that happen, there's a feeling that goes behind that, which goes to the kinesthetic learning piece of all of it, right? You do all of those things, you incorporate all of those things that we tell you to do. Again, that's mindset. I'm focusing on mindset when I talk about all those things that seem random. The other thing that we focus on is test strategies. Test strategies, we will cover test strategies. I did a session with 2 other people where we did quiz questions and answers. We'll have an opportunity to do that in these sessions as well. And I'll cover test strategies in those sessions. The last thing is content. The content is the smallest, is the least important, but still the foundation to everything. And that's the basic terminology. You're gonna get some vocabulary words and basic terminology so that you can at least make an educated guess when you cannot rely on mindset or test taking strategies. I did a lot of talking there because I still want to respect and honor the 3 o'clock time. And so I do talk really quick, but I'm going to edit that first part of this session out, and then I'm going to go ahead and post it for the other people who weren't able to make it. Does that answer your question, Brad? Does that make things clear? And then you follow the homework, right? So let me go back to the screen share so that we can.
Because on the practice exams, it's multiple choice questions with, then at the bottom of that, it then has your little one-liner. So
Right.
in that, are we reading option 1, option 2? Are we focusing on the question and go right to the bold answer and disregard all the other 3?
That's exactly it right there, is you're just going to read the question and read that one right answer and disregard the other ones. And then if you need more information, then you look at the explanation at the bottom of the question and answer.
Okay. And is there a correlation, like number 1, it says a person involved in a viatical settlements would XY, do we just say viatical settlements absolute assignment, like
Exactly.
associate here? Okay.
So you're going to underline viatical with a highlighter or marker, and then you're going to underline absolute assignment. So you're looking for the keywords in the question and the keywords in the answer. And then, and like I said, highlight that. Now for that specific question, what I would do, like in a cram course, we go over that question. I would say, if you see V for viatical, think of vodka. V for vodka. What type of vodka?
Yep.
Absolute vodka. Exactly, right? So vodka and absolute go hand. So I'll give you some of those little tricks when we do questions and answers and during the cram course as well.
Got it.
Okay, so now this is the homework. So the homework for tonight would be to log in to your Lightspeed account, and you would complete chapters 1 and 2. And then tomorrow's session, we'll go over insurance basics, and it would be what you would have covered in chapter 1 and 2. Now, I advised you to follow the schedule, right? I put some thought into it. I was trying to figure out like which would be the most effective way. I find that most learners do better when they review the material first and then come to the session. Now, if you're anything like me, I'm not that kind of learner. So I'm going to out myself here. I would rather listen to the info because I'm very auditory. So like if I'm reading a really dense book and I have a hard time getting through it, I'll get the audio book, I'll listen to the audio book, and then I'll go and I'll read the book. I've done that several times. So for me as an auditory learner, I know that about myself. I would rather attend the session and then do the homework. But you know, the homework is really heavy on the weekend, so I wouldn't advise that, because the weekend, that's where I'm assigning most of the work. Does that make sense? And I do that on purpose to prepare you for the sessions that are coming, so that you're in a better position to ask questions. And so, you know what type of learner you are. You know the best way for you to do this. I did this based on the common denominator of the way most learners would get the most out of this. And so, but you have the freedom to take what we have here and then modify it to your learning style. But don't take too many liberties, because I don't want you to get behind in the learning, because then what happens is that learning is fun. It's supposed to be fun. The moment you add stress to it, it takes away from the learning experience. Does that make sense? That's why, like, one of the things that I do in the classroom is if I have a sense that a class has a lot of anxiety, because I can feel that walking into the room, like they just left their kids, or you get a sense of it, and I've been doing this for like 23 plus years, I will introduce meditation, I will introduce breath work. And so we will start with breath work in the morning before we start in our sessions. Why? Because I need you to be in a learning state so that you can maximize your time together with me. Does that make sense? And so, and again, we play it by ear. I will do a breathing type of exercise with all of you, meaning that I will invite you to, I do breathwork classes at 6:30 in the morning. I will invite you to that. And the reason for the invitation, I'll make that invitation next week. The reason for that is because I want you to practice managing your state. If you have test anxiety, if you're concerned about going to the testing center while we are shelter in place, it will affect your ability to pass that exam. And so by teaching you breath work, it will allow you to manage your state so that when you are in the testing center and you're concerned about being out, that is the last thing on your mind. Why? Because we practiced one of the fastest ways to shift your state, and one of the fastest ways to relax you is through the breath. And I'll teach you like 2 or 3 different breath styles, different ways to like exercises, so that you can practice them before you take your exam, and you can choose the one that best works for you. All right. Do you have any other questions? Does that answer the questions? I hope I addressed all of the questions that could possibly be asked.
Yeah, I guess as a piece of advice, since I'm on 11, 12, I think I have the last 3 chapters, should I go back and review 1 and 2, even though I've already done those?
No, you know what I would put more attention to for you, Brad, is read the playbook. Read the general insurance section of the playbook. You'll benefit from that.
So general insurance section.
Yes. General insurance, for sure.
I have a question.
Sure, Rebecca.
So session 1, homework, online learning, chapter 1 and 2. This is the online course, and then the playbook is separate. I don't have the playbook, so I'm just trying to understand it.
I'm gonna mail it to you to, I'm in the office, I'll mail it to you today. So I'll mail you the playbook today. You should get it tomorrow, because you're local, you're in the Bay Area, and the main post office is down the street from the San Jose school. So I'll send you the playbook today, you'll get it tomorrow. And in the first part, or at the end of tomorrow's session, after we're done, I'll leave it open for anybody who wants to stay after and ask questions, and then we'll go over the playbook again. That way it's right in front of you and you can see it.
Okay, but just to understand, the online chapters 1 and 2 have nothing to do with the playbook. It's separate material.
Exactly. Because the playbook is organized this way: life only, accident and health, general insurance, and life agent, mixing all of it together. And this is what you use to prepare for the exam. Whereas the pre-licensing is, a metaphor I use for that is like, you can read a book about running. So the pre-licensing book is reading a book about running. So you know all the concepts about running. But if you read a book about running, does that mean you can run 5K, 3.1 miles? Not necessarily, right? Because your body now needs to get into the fitness of running. So then you're going to practice running. That's what the playbook is about. The playbook is about putting your tennis shoes on, putting the miles in, and running. Because now you're practicing by reading questions and answers, questions and answers. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So on the general insurance, I should just go read all the key points and then go to all the questions.
Right. You read all the key points for the life only, and then read the quizzes for the general. I'm sorry. Read your homework tonight for you, Brad, because you've already done the online training, is I would read the general insurance section and do the general insurance quizzes. Read the quizzes 1 and 2. Yep. All right. Are we good? Shukri, are you good? Looks like you're at work. I can see that. I can
I am at
appreciate
work.
why you're mute.